This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to a Monday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carinante. Let the games begin! Spring training games have begun. Enthusiasm level is clearly higher than yours, Thomas. But so far, through 3 games, we've gotten to see basically all that we want to see out of spring training. We're not yet at the point where we're like, all right, regular season, clock's ticking. This is boring. It's all exciting. It's all new. And they're playing the kids so far. The opener on Saturday, you could have seen the Phillies broadcast on MLB TV. You could not have seen it anywhere else. The Yankees did not cover it, and that game was bad. But Gleyber Torres looked pretty good. He was the regular that we sent over to Clearwater, Florida, to take some reps against the NL champion Phillies. But yesterday's doubleheader helped us out in myriad ways and was a lot more interesting to watch. The Yankees were able to send, Jasson Dominguez played in the first game. Anthony Volpe starred yesterday on the road in a minor league lineup we sent to play the Toronto Blue Jays A team. They whomped them. And then the Yankees won their home opener, Jose Trevino, grand slam. You already know that, but that's obviously not the most important thing to come out of the weekend. We're going to talk about everybody who's dazzled us so far at spring training. Only 3 games deep in the storylines we're keeping an eye on. Plus, the pitch clock is all everybody else is talking about. It has not gotten the Yankees in a way that's aggravating yet, but the Boston Red Sox, of course, get to extra innings if this were a real game, if this were real life. They would have escaped a 9th inning bases loaded situation because the batter did not get set in time according to a robot countdown clock. That's a little bit frustrating, but you know what? Rather you work out the kinks now than during the regular season. That said, if that happened to the Yankees in a regular season Red Sox game, or God forbid a postseason game, I would take my hat off my head, I would put it in my mouth, and I would eat it in one bite. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We are more than happy to answer any of those. Love the reviews. You're dropping the star rating just rising, folks. That's what we love to see. Outside of somebody in December who said we talked down to him. I don't know who that was. We'll try not to do that, sir. Sure. But everybody else seems to be enjoying the content. Thanks for interacting. Thanks for being on the live stream along with us. And thanks for listening on all podcast platforms. We are going to be here every Monday and Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. If you miss us, you can catch us, the audio feed on all those platforms, or subscribe on YouTube to get the video content. Thomas Carinante, spring has sprung. So far, so good for the boys. The results don't matter, but then when you win, you definitely are like, haha, yeah, sick. We won in spring training. I don't know. I kind of feel that way. Probably shouldn't, but the kids so far are the story.
Yeah, very nice to see Dominguez in that opener lineup. Didn't really expect that. I don't. For Yankee standards, it feels aggressive. So it was nice to see that bit of a change there. And then Volpe was in there day 2. I don't even know who's in there today. I didn't check the lineup, but
they announced it 29 seconds ago, so I can tell you.
Let's see.
Your leadoff man is IKF again. The home fans are going to love that. Bader in center, Oswaldo at 3rd, Volpe at 2nd. He's batting 5th. Willie Calhoun in the DH spot, batting 2nd. In the bottom of the lineup, Bowers, Florial, Rodolfo Duran at catcher. Of course, who doesn't know Rodolfo Duran? And Billy McKinney, old friend, in right field.
Cool. That's fine with me. We got to see some of the young pitchers too. Greg Weissert got action. Randy Vasquez got action. Clayton Beeter got some action.
Yeah.
Somebody was tweeting about DJ Snelton and how he's going to be like the surprise guy, and he didn't even get through an inning, gave up 2 hits, 3 walks.
He was bad. The surprise guy, if you're on the DJ Snelton bandwagon, then God bless. I don't know. I feel like the easier one to peg is Nick Ramirez, the other lefty, who 2.93 ERA last year at the minor league level, 55 and a third innings, 53 Ks, 1.16 WHIP, with Tacoma Triple. He's been with the Padres. He's made stops in the majors. Previously, didn't really succeed in those stops in the majors in 2021. 5.75 ERA in 13 games. But he came into the same game that Snelton pitched the opener, and he looks much better. So he's 33. It's not like I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and be like, look, if Nick Ramirez doesn't go east with the big league Yankees, this team is making a huge mistake. I can't say that, but I would say he's an easier pick to click than DJ Snelton, someone I barely am aware of at this point.
And Brito started yesterday's game against the Blue Jays, two innings, 3 hits, 2 strikeouts, no earned runs. So that's a good start for him. Someone who we talked about as a fringe roster guy, active roster guy. There's a lot of time left, but we also got Andres Chaparro's home run. That was a missile. Brandon Lockridge RBI triple. Elijah Dunham got 2 hits, I think, 2 for 3 with a walk. I'm liking what I'm seeing from these younger guys, especially because it's a very it's just good. It's a very good combination of power, speed, athleticism, specifically among Volpe, Dunham, and Dominguez. You saw all those on display the last 2 days. I think that it's going to create a roster crunch discussion sooner rather than later. I don't think it's going to be at the onset of the season. I still think Volpe will start the year in AAA. I think Dominguez is going to start the year in AA. We heard from Brendan Cuddy today that Elijah Dunham is going to start the year at AAA probably, which I think is a great sign for what's to come with the left field situation. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I think this is as encouraging as it's going to get. You have someone like Dominguez who's dealt with the most ridiculous criticism since he's come up. Some moron compared him to Mike Trout, and then that's been the discourse ever since he was 17 years old.
It's not like there was even a skill comparison.
No.
I think it was literally just like, oh man, an expensive guy who seems good. Like the ceiling is Mike Trout. Yeah, I mean, no shit. The ceiling of everybody is Mike Trout. Like, and then if you downgrade somebody from there, you probably don't say it right away.
Yeah, especially for someone who's a teenager. He's played 2 full seasons, not even 2 full seasons. He's played 1 full season, and he's played 1.5 seasons, pretty much 57 games in his debut in 2021, and then like 110 last year, plus the Arizona Fall League, which I think was an additional 15 maybe, as a 19-year-old. Helped the AA Somerset Patriots win championship, came around and kind of quieted all of the issues with his power. The power wasn't there in year 1. We had the funny, the Randy Miller stuff about his hustle and his dedication and whatnot. I think we saw him lumber around the bases a number of times this past year. We've seen him make plays in the outfield. So for him to homer in his second at bat of the spring, when there's already these expectations, when there's already this vacancy in left field, which everybody keeps talking about, and there are fans who want to see him in the opening day lineup, I think that's a little bit insane. I wouldn't be against it, but what's the rush? Again, what's the rush? You don't need everything settled on opening day. You let things shake out. You see who's emerging. You let your guys develop if they have the time. If things were a little bit more dire in New York, had we maybe lost Aaron Judge in the offseason or Anthony Rizzo or something else happen where you saw the 2023 team taking a major step back from 2022, I would say, you know what, let's bring Volpe and Dominguez up and just say, fuck it, we'll see what happens. But we're not in that situation. So nonetheless, for him to do that at the onset, and that was an absolute bomb from the right side of the plate, which I believe is his weaker side from an offensive standpoint, couldn't do a better job of de-escalating the pressure. That's the kind of occurrence you need right in the beginning to cruise through spring, maybe even expedite your situation in the minors. Maybe the Yankees say, you know what, we'll throw him at AA for a month. If he does okay there after showing us that he was able to hang with the big leaguers in the spring, we'll get him to AAA by mid-May, and then when rosters expand in September, maybe we'll bring him up too. So I think we're looking at a very good situation here, and there are plenty of reasons to be optimistic as we move forward over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Dominguez hit, just like a very, the kind of rocket that prospects on other teams hit.
Yeah.
Like, how often does Dominguez, one of the most vaunted prospects, come up, play for the Yankees in the first spring training game and just like destroy a game tying home run in the left field? Against obviously a non-entity, not a major. None of this matters. It's not like Dominguez is not going to be on the opening day roster because he homered off some mysterious left-hander that the Phillies threw out there in the spring training opener, but did not show up last fall in the Arizona Fall League, when all eyes were on him, leads to all sorts of nonsensical narratives. He doesn't hug the Randy Miller columns. Notice how the Randy Miller columns came out at the beginning of the year. He was getting his feet wet. And then no Randy Miller columns during the part of the season when he was learning high A on the fly and hitting 450 with 3 homers to lead the Somerset Patriots to a Double-A championship. Radio silence in the Randy Miller department. And then all of a sudden, when all eyes are on him in the Arizona Fall League, the anonymous scout starts chirping again. He's too big for his britches. He's not earning it or whatever other nonsense. Like, first you tell him he's as talented as Mickey Mantle and Mike Trout. Then he shows he's probably not going to reach that absurd inner circle Hall of Fame level ceiling. And then it's like, he's not working hard enough. It's like, you already told him he's the natural talent of Mike Trout, and now he's got to work for it. Like, he's adjusting all across the board. He was 16 when he first talked about him. Like, the thing I don't get with Dominguez is it's painfully obvious when you watch him that there's an incredible amount of talent there. I don't watch him and I go, I wish he were Mike Trout. I watch him and look at the effortless power deep into the left center field seats on that home run to announce himself. This is not a major stage. This was not a game that counts in the standings. This was not a AAA. The level of competition at AAA is probably higher than the level of competition in the 5th inning of the spring training opener. But how many Yankees prospects over the years would have just shown up in that scenario and hit a silencer into left field to change the narrative and to make people think a little closely about, the left field vacancy for this year is very real. Center field, if they don't come to an extension with Harrison Bader, is also going to be empty heading into next season. But Dunham and Dominguez and Austin Wells and Spencer Jones, the Yankees are drafting names to fill these holes. So it might not happen this year, but it could easily happen in 2024 and beyond. And speaking of top prospects who showed up and showed out immediately, Anthony Volpe. It's a shame this was a road game and it took place in front of the Dunedin fans, or maybe that was a good thing because they got to get a taste. It's nice to give the Blue Jays fans a taste first. Toronto Blue Jays apparently treating their first spring training battle with the Yankees as something beyond what it was. Vlad Jr. hit a 2-run home run off 31-year-old reliever Matt Bowman, who's trying to make a comeback to the bigs. Not a successful start to his journey. Vlad tattooed one and then got in the dugout and told everybody to put up the finger on his mouth, telling everybody to shush. I don't know which of the haters told Vlad Jr. that he couldn't hit a home run off a middle reliever in his early 30s during a Sunday in Dunedin, but apparently if somebody did that, then in their face, they had no idea. They didn't.
6 of their 9 starters, too, in this game.
Yeah. Dalton Varsho played. Didn't look good. That's a shame. But the Jays put everybody in this lineup. The Yankees literally sent a minor league lineup to Blue Jays camp, plus Josh Donaldson. It was a hilarious gesture, whether that was on purpose or not. I don't know if maybe Josh Donaldson, they just wanted to get him a standing ovation at Blue Jays camp where he once won the MVP. And it worked. The Blue Jays fans loved him. He also admitted in a column that was published today that he didn't feel prepared for last season because of the lockout. Cool, Josh. We'll see if that comes into play this year. Probably not, because he actually did his best work at the beginning of last season. But I digress. He played. Dunham played. Anthony Volpe played. By the end of that game, Volpe was the story. He went 2 for 4. He did ground into a play in his final at bat. Don't have to talk about that. The other ones, 105-mile-an-hour line out, no problem. Second at bat, Nate Pearson comes in. He's on the comeback trail from injury, former Blue Jays top prospect, throwing 101, and he's elevating, and all the announcers are gushing about Nate Pearson. And then Anthony Volpe rips one in a right center. The most classic-looking single you've ever seen. Right field
classic.
Caught up for some reason. Slow plays it in right field, like trips over his own feet or whatever, just kind of waits for the ball. By the time he gets it back into the infield, Volpe is not only safe at second, but he's sort of just lying on second base. And I know Anthony Volpe's fast, and we talked about this on Twitter yesterday. We tweeted the video and said, how many of you knew Volpe was this fast? I think it's a fair question. I knew he stole 50 bases, which Brian Hoke pointed out in the comments. It's his duty. He's got to point that out in the
Thanks,
comments.
Brian.
Yeah, he did. He had homers, stole 50 bags last year. Andrew Jones, no one's done that in the minors since Andrew Jones. That's great. But you don't know how fast Anthony Volpe is until you watch him turn a single with the slightest weird hesitation into borderline a stand-up double. He dove in a second. He probably didn't even have to. That was incredible. Third AB gets a single again. Pitch out, steals second, he's safe. Again.
Not even close.
Not even close. It was a finely executed pitch out. Very next pitch takes off for third again. We're going to talk about the pitch clock. That's another rule change that's going to benefit the game of baseball this year. In previous years, there would obviously be people walking around, batters stepping out. Now the pitcher is only allowed to throw 2 pickoff moves. If you try a third, you got to get him. Otherwise, he takes the base anyway. Volpe, with no regard for human life, trying to test the limits of that, takes second, takes third back to back. So everything we've heard, I don't even think the scouting reports have done his electricity justice, and he looked unbelievable yesterday. Again, spring training game, it's nonsense. But if people are out there questioning the prospect pedigree and looking at the average and going, he hit 248 last year, AA, who cares? Like, all you had to do is watch yesterday's game. It jumped off the page.
Absolutely. I couldn't believe that he took second that easily on that hit to right field. And those 2 stolen bases, like we said, not even close. The pitch out was hilarious. They were prepared for it. They knew it was coming. The throw, I don't even think the throw was on target, but even if it was a perfect throw, he was still in. And yeah, I agree. I can't believe we're sitting here and people were debating whether he would be a top 10 prospect in baseball at some point, because we saw a little bit of a decline from his huge ascension in 2021 off to 2022 when he struggled in the first 2 months of the season. That's naturally going to happen with almost any prospect. So once again, it's the whole expectation thing. It's the same thing with the Dominguez, Mike Trout comps. It's the same thing with everybody looking at this linearly. Oh, Anthony Volpe had a rock star 2021, should be a rock star again in 2022, should actually even be better, and then should be forcing his way to a roster spot at the MLB level. Doesn't work like that. But I was kind of shocked because we've only largely seen highlights of Volpe. We have not watched games at the minor league level. I have not attended a game in which we attended one game in which he's played. I don't think he got on base that day.
No, it was like his worst game. We went to Somerset last summer, and I think he went 0 for 3 with a couple of Ks. Then we had to bolt because the train was coming. It was probably the worst sample size you could get.
Yeah, that was bad. Austin Wells showed out that day. I remember that. But yeah, we were there the one day. He didn't get on base. He made a couple of nice defensive plays, but you need to see somebody like that when they put the ball in play and are able. It's someone like him able to use his tools, to use his speed, to use his instincts. And watching it live in-game moment, I couldn't believe that he was that fast. Like we said, we saw clips from the minor leagues, but that's the minor leagues too. It's going to look impressive, but you always take it with a grain of salt because the competition is lesser. And someone like Volpe, who theoretically is lapping the field talent-wise, should be able to do that. Now you face the Blue Jays in a spring training game. It's his first appearance at spring training. The Blue Jays are playing 6 of their 9 starters. And then who were the other backups in this game for them? It was like Rob Brantley was playing catcher for them. Is that right?
Yeah, my God. I mean, there's a dude on the Blue Jays who looks ridiculous. We got to give them credit.
They have a Zach Britton too.
Addison Barger, who is a third base prospect. He hits lefty yesterday and ripped. There's also a guy named LJ something who's a prospect who had a 3-run shot in the 5th inning. The Blue Jays have a lot of talent, and they showed it off yesterday.
Yeah. So they had Rob Brantley, a catcher, Zach Britton, Zach with an H in right field starting, and then Kayvon Biggio at first base. So even Brantley's played plenty of spring training games with the Yankees. Like this is a fairly good lineup to play against and show what you're made of. Volpe's first spring game does that against that type of major league lineup. I'm liking it. I can't deny that's impressive to me, the manner in which he kind of leaped onto the scene. And again, another person who is under a microscope, regardless if he wants to be or not. It's just the nature of the beast. Shortstop prospect, New York Yankees organization, clear vacancy and path to play shortstop. And you get off to a start like that at the beginning of spring. You have these highlight clips circulating on social media. You got people talking about you in a positive manner because of the the talents you were able to showcase right off the bat, takes the pressure off. You have to, and it'll make his life a lot easier probably to start the year in AAA. He'll kind of have that confidence, which I'm sure will be even more advantageous. I know he's a confident guy, and I know that he doesn't really waver on that front, but any type of support you can get from fans in general or just discourse on social media, because we know how toxic it can usually be and it can affect players' mindsets, the better it is. So I don't know when he's going to come up, but the trajectory right now is looking fairly promising for, I think, June. I don't think that's crazy if he does everything correctly.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to crack the opening day roster. That's very obvious. But if he does what he did yesterday on a consistent basis, I'm not ruling out the 2018 Gleyber Torres promotion, like having him up at April 25th. Like, it depends on what the team looks like in April. 2018, all these expectations, Giancarlo Stanton shows up, and it's the Red Sox who get out to an 18-2 start or whatever they do. And the Yankees are, treading water at 500-ish, as they seem to do more Aprils than not. And then they're like, all right, we got to press that Gleyber Torres button. And he was great. Like, it depends what we see in April from Volpe, what we see in March from Volpe, and what we see in April from the rest of the Yankees. But I wouldn't be shocked with April 30th, May 1st, somewhere in that territory, and June, July at the very latest. But he got his feet wet at AAA last year for a reason. Now, let's talk a little bit about the home game, too. Just to shout out some dudes. We've skipped one game basically during this spring training weekend recap, and it's the game where they almost no-hit the Atlanta Braves. Now, The Braves lineup was nothing special yesterday. Marcell Ozuna found himself in there as the Josh Donaldson of the backup Braves lineup. Pretty embarrassing. But that doesn't take anything away from Clark Schmidt, who is firmly in this fifth starter race, who struck out 5 of the 6 batters he faced yesterday in a remarkably efficient start. And he's apparently got a new pitch to work with. So I think that matters as well. So take note of what you see from Clark Schmidt. Davy Garcia, someone that we wrote off, I think for good reason, obviously in his final chance to prove himself with this team, was elevating 96 yesterday. Now, I'm not going to get too optimistic about Davy Garcia. If there's anyone who's won spring training outing I'm not going to overreact to, it's Davy Garcia. But any bit of competence from him is more interesting than anything we've seen in 2 years since the end of 2020. So that's also a positive. And Clayton Beeter finished out the game. Like we talked about, Spencer Jones, last year's first rounder, also got some run. Didn't do much, but it was nice to see him get some big league time. He's on the bench tonight as well at the prime time game that will be started by Luis Severino. We have not seen a good chunk of the starters yet. Aaron Judge did a little work yesterday in the home opener. That was probably some fan service. Trevino hit a grand slam, as we said. No Stanton, no DJ, no Rizzo. Not tonight either. Now, I don't care. I'm not thirsty for that, but just noting those are the starters we have not seen. It matters just as much as Isaiah Kiner-Falefa starting at shortstop tonight. That does not matter. He will not be leading off. He will probably not be your starting shortstop on opening day. I just want to take this opportunity to tell Yankee fans it's spring training. Chill on booing Aaron Hicks in spring training.
Yeah, come on.
How about that? You know what? We've also, it sounds ridiculous to say that we've been on the side of defending the boos in recent weeks and months, but we kind of have, just because I would be lying if I said I'd never booed a Yankees player. I also don't think a bunch of aggrieved fans watching the ALCS drunk in the evening are representative of a fan base that's like over the edge or over the line. And we can talk about isolated incidents at Fenway Park and all sorts of things. I think a lot of fan bases have done a lot worse than booing Aaron Judge in the ALCS. But I don't want to have to be the person who defends boos and whatnot. But you know what I won't defend? Aaron Hicks trying to get off to a fresh start this year and everybody booing him at home in spring training. What does that do? What does that do for anybody? Not that Aaron Hicks, you should be less free. I'm not going to say you broke his confidence. Yeah, it's on you if he struggles this year because you booed him in spring training, but just be better than that. Like, you can boo him, makes a big out in the middle of an April game, and I'm not going to defend or comment on it because it won't matter, but don't do it at spring training in Florida. There's absolutely no point doing that.
Yeah, and he didn't even do anything. He stepped into the batter's box.
No, it was the first AB. Yeah,
if you're going to boo, which, yes, we've supported, which I will still support because it's part of life, it has to be in response to something, or unless it's a player with a disturbing pass that a team employs, which we've seen on a multitude of occasions throughout the last few years. You don't like to see those types of things, but if it's somebody who's not good and is trying to get back on track in the lowest, in the lowest form of stakes here, just let the guy play. I was at spring training though before the world shut down in 2020, and Gary Sanchez struck out in a big spot against the Phillies in Tampa, and he got booed. But at least he did something bad that deserved a boo. Aaron Hicks walking up into the batter's box, that does not warrant that type of behavior. That's where we'll draw the line, I think. Still pro boo when the situation calls for it, but that's where you start entering very questionable territory in terms of you're actively trying to get in this player's head to make them worse. For what reason? That's how you create more of that negative energy that we don't need. Aaron Hicks, do I think he's going to be a big part of this team? Probably not. Is there a chance he could be? Sure. Rebounds happen all the time. They clearly want him involved in some capacity because of his salary or because of what they believe he might be able to unlock from a few years ago. You can be pessimistic about that. That's fine. You could talk about how that's not really realistic. You could talk about how the Yankees are a little bit crazy for thinking that. But if they're putting him out there and they're trying to see that experiment through, don't boo the guy. Send Brian Cashman hate mail. Shoot him an email. Put some help. Use the postal service. They'll drop your stuff right off at the front office. No sense in doing this type of stuff. You want Aaron Hicks to be good, don't you? Wouldn't it be great to have Aaron Hicks be good this year? I think it would be awesome. Like I said, I'm not confident it's going to happen, which is a fine opinion to have, but you don't start on this foot right now where you're trying to bring somebody down without the next chapter even beginning. That's where people look at Yankees fans or just fans in general, and they think that it's amateur bush league, entitled type behavior, and I don't want to be associated with that either.
And I think they're right. I think it is bush and amateur and entitled behavior. I'm not a fan of Aaron Hicks necessarily, and I'm appreciative of what he did in 2017 and 2018. I don't think he's the right starting left fielder for a World Series champion caliber Yankee team, almost, kind of, sort of, this year. But I'm not going to not give him a chance. I'm going to let him get off to a start. April games matter just as much as September games. It's true. But the corniest, most frustrating person is the person who reminds you of that. Who in the middle of September when you're up 3 games is like, if only we could have not started Hicks those first 2 weeks when he hit 184. We might be in a better place. Okay, cool. Congrats on having watched the entire season. But like sometimes you do have to work things out at the beginning of the year. And you wouldn't be saying that if Hicks got off to a great start. So you're going to, I think, have to trust the New York Yankees on this one. And if Hicks is awful and they won't pull the plug, then yeah, we'll talk about it. But for now, I don't think you get to boo him walking to the plate in spring training. We tweeted about Volpe showing off that speed demon. And somebody said, somebody in the comments are all great, right? Everybody's like, oh, wow, he's fast. It's a very nice comment. Oh, cool. Yeah, very quick. And someone was like, no, you don't get to root for him because fans like you cheered for IKF last year. I cheer for anybody who's on the New York Yankees, unless it's like Aroldis Chapman, who, like you said, generally did awful things, doesn't deserve to be on the roster. Life would have been better last year if IKF had been great. He wasn't. And life would be better going into this year if we knew we could trust him to put up XYZ or to hit with any semblance of power. But now we know, and we can. And he's even a valuable utility man at this point. But, I wanted him to succeed last year. So what?
No, we had no idea what was happening with him either. He had a good year in Texas. Were we optimistic about him being the next full-time shortstop? No, but we liked the profile. It was a good glove. It's something that the team had been missing at that position for a couple of years. It was a contact bat to put in the 9-hole, something that the team hasn't had in years. And it worked out for a little bit, and then it quickly went downhill. And also just because you root for somebody and they don't pan out doesn't now give somebody else the power to gatekeep who you're allowed to root for in the future. That's the craziest shit I've ever heard.
You're not allowed to say Montas has been a bad acquisition, and you're not allowed to root for Volpe because you were hoping IKF was better last year. Do I have my priorities straight? I think that's it. Cool. Let's talk pitch clock just because everybody is talking pitch clock. I don't think we do a baseball podcast.
Pitch clock, then Jake Paul. We got to hit the trending topics.
Sure. I'll let you cover Jake. I didn't watch Jake. I don't know what he was up to. I don't know if he went 2 for 4 in Dunedin, but yeah, I'll let you talk Jake Paul. Pitch clock so far, I think obviously pretty good. The one uncomfortable moment was, of course, at the Red Sox game, as the last guy on the Red Sox roster in the bullpen was blowing this horrific performance. Bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2 count, game tied. For some reason,
it was 0-2. It was 0-2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was 3-2, and I went back and it changed it a little bit because that's probably why the guy was taking long to get in the box. But anyway,
well, he was walking to first, so I think he thought it was a pitcher's violation, automatic ball. But I have no idea why he was going to first. I assumed it was 3-2, and he thought it was an automatic walk. But he got called out for not setting himself properly, and the game ended because spring training games can end in a tie. Of course, that happened to the Red Sox first. Of course it did. Of course, that's natural. But not a real game. We got to iron out the kinks. Somebody wrote basically about why would you, if this is going to work, it's going to work because there was a zero tolerance policy early so that nobody backed into bad habits. And they weren't letting a whole bunch of stuff slide in April, May, and at the end of the season because they let it slide in spring training. You iron this out now. You're harsh as hell. And cynically, when a Red Sox Braves spring training game that nobody was watching outside of Boston and Atlanta anyway ends on a rules violation pitch clock issue from the batter, that's going to open eyes. That's going to get people talking about baseball. That is going to get people talking about the rule adjustments and the potential impact they could have. And the worse it looks earlier on, the better people are going to think it looks later in the season, because there's going to be a month that goes by without a crucial pitch clock violation that decides anything. And people are going to go, oh, nice, the players are getting the hang of it. Or, oh, nice, I was worried about that. And then it kind of went away and didn't affect my life at all. The 2 viral things that have circulated today, I think, are worth talking about. Like, besides the huge flub, there's the TikTok of Pedro Baez in the NLCS in Chicago throwing one pitch to the Cubs, and it takes as long between pitches as it does for Jose Altuve to circle the bases 5 times. He hit an inside the park home run, and they synced that up with Pedro Baez just messing with timing during the game on the biggest stage. Like, this is a playoff game, and it's just endless time being sucked out of these at-bats. You watch baseball in its heyday in the 70s and 80s, this did not happen. Pitchers did not have endless time to prepare themselves, to get revved up, to go max effort on every pitch. In a way, the way bullpens work nowadays, they're too good. If you're the Houston Astros, you're able to stack 6 guys who throw 101 and can take as much time as they want between pitches and stomp around the mound and get to rock back and fire and max effort, 100-mile-an-hour deliveries every time. It's almost impossible for that group of people to blow a lead. Now we're maybe going to have an equalizer. Also, Houston, we talked last week, they wrote some column that basically implied all these rule changes were meant to target them specifically. Cry more. It was extremely embarrassing. But a Houston radio host today just tweeted, the other day he tweeted that Jose Altuve looked like he was thrown off by the pitch clock and was struggling to get that in time. And today he just tweeted he's over 3 with 3 strikeouts, and this is officially a red alert for Jose Altuve. So if it's going to make Astros fans and analysts and writers whine more, then I love it even more than I did this morning.
I love that. That's amazing. It was a 3-2 count. I was reading the MLB app and it said 0-2. The MLB app was wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm an idiot.
No,
MLB's an idiot. MLB, just get it right. That's where I'm going for the information. Why would I go anywhere else?
The MLB app, for some reason, during spring training, sometimes it only puts strikes up. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Obviously,
and it skipped an inning. It skipped an inning on one of the feeds.
Yeah, very cool.
I don't know. But yeah, these pitch clock takes, it's maddening. Everybody has an opinion after the 4 hours of implementation. Starting with that though, obviously the game does need to speed up in some capacity. If you follow the Dodgers at all, you would know that Pedro Baez is a laughing stock among that fan base because of how long he takes the pitch, when he left in free agency that year, the Astros, hey, so speaking of the Astros, they signed him to like a 3-year, like $15 million deal or something. And they DFA'd him like 2 months into the season and then just paid all the money because they knew it wasn't worth it. That type of behavior is what forced us to reach this point, right? The game was different back then. The game evolves, but you have different generations come up playing different forms of the game. And then we reach a point where it's gotten a little bit out of hand. I love postseason baseball. It's probably my favorite playoffs to watch of any sport. Sometimes the games are interminable. Do I want necessarily one of these types of super regulated, whatever you call them, in place to make sure people are following the rules? Not really. I don't want that, but we've reached a point where that probably needs to happen. The games can't, with the amount of stoppages you have, with pitching changes, with mound visits, with all of that. A lot of this comes into focus, and you realize that it's also on the batter too. We've talked. Remember Robinson Cano taking forever to get back in the batter's box. Mm-hmm. I saw some old highlights of Nomar Garciaparra redoing his gloves and bat and elbow pad after every single pitch. Whether he swung or not, there's literally no need for that. It's just stand in there, go. If there's a foul ball where you have to readjust yourself, that's fine. Or you swung out of your shoes and your helmet, whatever. But it's become too nuanced to the point where everybody has their own. They have their own little quirks and they have their own little processes, and it's affecting the larger picture of it. Just have some self-awareness, because this is not just about you. It's about the game. The game's got to move. People got to play. We got to get to the end of it. It's unfortunate that now we have to have Rob Manfred doing this, and it's an easy target for all the detractors and people who don't like him to laugh about this rule and say that it's going to ruin baseball, and this is going to happen in Game 7 of the NLCS when a batter forgets to get back in the box and they strike out with the bases loaded. I think safe to say, in case you haven't lived in society and have realized how rules work, people eventually adapt to the rules. We have rules of the road. You've all pretty much have understood those, right? Since you were 17 years old, I think you got it. You know what a stop sign is. You know what a green light is. Funny thing.
Guess what? If somebody does get a crucial strike 3 called on them in the NLCS because they forgot what was going on and stepped out, your fault. Don't do that. It's been the rule all year at that point. Don't forget. It's a brain lock. It happens. J.R. Smith dribbled out the clock in a playoff game, and nobody was like, why was there a clock? They were like, J.R. Smith is an idiot. Like, if somebody steps out in the middle of a World Series game and the clock goes off on them, that's their fault, and they'll have to wear it.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. Like, you have to follow the protocols. Now there is a new protocol. We are putting it in place in spring training. It already went through for what? Did it start last year in the minors, or they started implementing it 2 years ago in the Arizona Fall League or something? Either way, whatever it is, there has been a portion of the next generation of players who have already been accustomed to this. And those were technically professionals, but they were a step down. So they had to adapt to this. And now it's up to the people at the highest level, the players at the highest level, to adjust and make sure that they're able to adhere to the new rules. It's really not that complicated. They have 6 weeks or 5 weeks to make sure that they have it all under control before opening day on March 30th. We're all adults here, guys. We all know how to put our pants on. I think it's more than doable. In terms of the Astros stuff, it is funny because I did laugh at that column where the writer was like, oh, these are all designed to target the Astros and to stop them from their dominance. And IKF actually had a quote about the pitch clock over the weekend. It was after the first game of spring training, and he said, quote, "We're always going to be ready now. We love when you love when guys work fast. We're not going to be looking in our hats for the sign, because if you do, the ball is going to go by you. It's going to keep everybody locked in." You think about how the Astros were relaying signs. You think about how, hey, the Yankees were relaying signs too, folks. For all the haters out there, tune in. We'll talk about that as well. For all the Apple Watches the Yankees were using to relay signs, whatever it is that gets you going, you have to realize that that's also going to be stopped here, because the pace is going to be quicker. There will be fewer delays where you can bang on a trash can or fart into a megaphone to get that sign relayed out to the batter.
That's what the Dodgers were doing, right? They were farting into
the megaphone, yeah. That's why the Astros were so mad, because they were like, oh, dude, Cody Bellinger, shut up, man. We knew exactly what you were doing. you were getting stoned and farting into that megaphone. But now that I'm looking at it, it is funny because you think about the speed of the game increasing in that manner, and you're not going to have that delay. You're not going to have that luxury to decode signs, or even if you do, there might not be enough time to relay it to the batter. So when you look at it that way, it is kind of funny. And the timing of it is also interesting because when do you really think the league found out about the Astros cheating? Because it definitely wasn't 2020. They definitely found out in like 2018. And then it reached the mainstream media on social media when John Boy did that video. And then everybody kind of caught on. And then MLB was like, all right, guess we'll do an investigation now and we'll see what's going on and we'll figure it out. And then all of it came to light 3 years later. The pitch clock has been an idea for years now. I don't think that it's the craziest thing to assume that it might have been in response to a multitude of things. I think first and foremost is the pace of play. MLB wants younger fans. You are not getting younger fans if the game is boring, if the game is dragged on. If baseball's for attracting newer fans and attracting younger fans, the rules are there's a lot to keep up with. So the longer the game drags on and the more confused you are, the less engaged you're going to be. So I don't doubt that was the primary reason. And then you look at the after effects of all this stuff happening since 2017, probably before that too. Sign stealing has been a thing forever. It just never reached the point where it was this kind of strategically utilized in an illegal fashion. And now the speed, because it's faster, is going to stop that from happening. And I do wonder if that was one of the reasons for implementing this as quickly as they possibly can. I know that 2023 isn't exactly they didn't exactly expedite it in that fashion because it's been going on for a while, but you got to do it at some point. And they probably thought in the wake after all this happening, we'll try to get it up as soon as we can and we'll see how it works. But it's funny to think about now. And I am laughing, also sympathizing with that Astros writer because it does kind of make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, non-zero. There's some stuff. I'm reading the Evan Drellick book right now that just came out on the cheating scandal, and I hope to have a full book report for you by Thursday. But this book definitely meanders. It starts off with Jeff Luhnow in St. Louis, and Jeff Luhnow at a consulting firm, and I'm 60 pages in, and I'm still talking about the 2013 Astros. But there is some stuff in here that indicates that when Evan Drellick worked in Boston, he confronted the Astros a little bit, and Jim Crane and company. In the 2018 ALDS. And there was at least some standoffishness of like, don't want to talk about that. Nope. No, thank you. Get out of here. So I would assume MLB knew something at that point, and then it had to wait a little bit while longer for the smoking gun. While we're here, we talking about Jake Paul? What are you going to? I mean, you've got Matt Carpenter.
Matt Carpenter looks sexy in this Padres uniform.
Yeah, Matt Carpenter looks legit good. There was a really uncomfortable graphic that went up. I think Talking Baseball tweeted it, or probably.
Why?
No. I mean, just like all the old Yankees in their new uniforms, and like everybody looked pretty good. It's like Benintendi looked great, Carpenter looked great, Aroldis Chapman looked like shit. Apparently, fell over and split his lip and not cracked a tooth in half over the weekend. Good for him. I wish the Yankees would have really tried for a bounce back buy low signing with Aroldis Chapman. What a shame. He had to go to Kansas City, but they also included Marwin Gonzalez's introductory press conference in Japan as kind of a funky graphic. What happened to the Paul brothers over the weekend? I kind of missed that.
Well, Jake Paul said to bet the mortgage on his fight with Tommy Fury. I did it, bet the entire mortgage, and he lost in a split decision. But what was funny, did you see that interview with him and Bomani Jones a couple weeks ago?
No, I think I have an auto mental filter block on Jake Paul. It's like a Brita that catches just Jake Paul heads when I'm trying to think about stuff.
Well, he appeared on Bomani Jones's show, the HBO show, or I don't know, it was something that he was doing. Regardless, it was a promotion thing for this fight with Tommy Fury, who's also not really a good boxer. I don't know if he's real. For all the
Tyson Fury relative or
he's related, I think, in some capacity. I don't know the exact lineage, but Portnoy was on the Rogan podcast, and they got into an argument over whether Tommy Fury was a real boxer or not. And Jake Paul has obviously been in boxing, but he hasn't actually been fighting the realest of boxers. And this was his first true test. So there's been all these arguments about, is he going to take the next step? Or, is this a real fight? Tommy Fury supposedly like backed out of the first fight that they were supposed to have. I don't know. Either way, Jake Paul, in leading up to this fight, hadn't lost the fight, appeared on the Bomani Jones thing, and Bomani was like, hey, like, you've been talking about winning this thing, which is like great, but like, have you planned on what happens if you potentially lose? And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to lose this. Only losers would ask that question. And then they like got into an argument on air. And Jake Paul was like, bro, I don't even know who the hell you are. Like, my PR team just told me to do this. Like, I don't need this right now. And then turns out lost the fight. And then last night on Instagram posts a story where he was like fake crying about losing the fight. And then the caption was like, when you lose the fight and win 30 million. And then he looks at the camera and like starts smirking and like doing this. So I'm like, you went on this giant crusade about how you're not going to lose. Anybody asking you if you potentially might lose is a loser and doesn't deserve your time. And then you lose. And now it's fine because you won $30 million. So now I'm wondering, is Jake Paul a Red Sox fan? Because this is exactly how that fan base would react in a similar scenario where it's like, oh, we're not going to lose X game. Or like, yeah, 2021 ALCS. We're not going to lose the series against the Astros and they lose. It's like, babe, we were supposed to lose anyway. Baseball doesn't even matter anymore. We weren't even supposed to be there. Who cares?
I'm not even a boxer. Who cares? I don't even do this. Why would you expect me to do better? I did see the discourse around the Bomani Jones clip. I didn't see the interview. Did see people being like, that's a mad disrespectful question. Now you've planted the idea of losing inside his head pre-fight, which is exactly what you don't want to do to a fighter. It's like the fighter doesn't know that he might lose a fight, then like that guy's a fucking idiot. Like
crazy person.
It should not take Bomani Jones asking that question to plant the seed of doubt. If it did, then kudos, because I don't want to see Jake Paul winning any fights, especially against tangential Fury cousins, because I'm a big fan of that family.
Yeah, they're cool. I love Tyson's great. I love when he sings after his matches. We need more of that. Singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie. Great guy.
Yeah, Tyson Fury, Tyson Beckford, all the good Tysons.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what else do we have? What else is in the news? Any regular news that would affect us? I think the Chapman thing is sadly funny. I mean, what was he doing where you're a 34-year-old adult? I mean, look, accidents happen. I don't want to jinx myself now. Went to a mosh pit on Saturday and slipped on a beer can.
Don't say it.
I went into a mosh pit on Saturday, slipped on a beer can, and cut my elbow. So I guess anything can happen. But in the comfort of your own home, I don't know. I don't want to jinx myself and split my lip. But whatever Chapman did, split his lip, chipped his tooth. His spring training's now delayed. Just good luck to the Royals, man. I don't know why you thought this might have been a good idea. I don't know who you think you're going to sucker in at the trade deadline to taking on Chapman in the remainder of his it'll probably be like $2 million or a little bit less than that. But we always know it can get worse with Aroldis Chapman. And here we go. Right at the start of spring, you already have a weird situation that doesn't seem right. And it's affecting his, and like you wrote about it today, like you said, he's got one of the slowest deliveries ever. He's got one of the slowest approaches ever. He needs to be on the mound as soon as possible to adapt to the pitch clock and everything that's going on. So if the longer he's delayed in spring, oh man, they're in for it for sure. The folks in Kansas City.
Yeah, Aroldis Chapman had the most pristine windup possible. Everything had to be absolutely perfect for the ball to actually reach home plate everything he did, he was mechanically designed like a robot to get the ball to 106. Because if he didn't have the perfect leg kick and the it's tough. It's not easy. But if he didn't have it all working together, that ball is sailing to the backstop. And even if he did have it working together, that ball might sail into a dude's mouth. We've seen it. Mike Brasso almost ruined. He basically did ruin our season because Aroldis Chapman fired a fastball past his head. So this guy. I had to get out of here. I had to get to San Diego. But yeah, Aroldis Chapman has the seventh worst tempo in baseball last year. And pitch tempo and what the pitch clock measures are different. Pitch clock is pitch to pitch. Tempo is pitch to pitch. Pitch clock is receiving the ball to delivering the ball. So they're different measures, but if you're slow at one, you're going to be slow at the other. And the Yankees don't get off scot-free here either. Jonathan Loaizaga was the literal worst pitch tempo in baseball last year, the slowest pitch to pitch. But Aroldis Chapman was seventh worst in baseball, and Aroldis Chapman not being in spring camp. Hey, Thomas, show of hands. Aroldis Chapman could be out for a little while. He cracked his tooth and he busted his lip, so he's not going to be able to get into game action. Do you think he's diligently working on the pitch clock while at home?
Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Maybe he was rushing too much and he did a little trip and fall action, somersault right into the edge of the wall. I don't know.
We said everything has to be perfect for the ball to get delivered. We've never seen it happen, but it wouldn't shock me if one little thing went wrong in Chapman's motion and he just toppled on his own mouth, forward on the mound. Never seen it, but it could happen.
Could. Well, so we didn't even go over the pitch clock rules just before we go. It's 30 seconds in between innings. 30 seconds in between innings, 20 seconds in between pitches.
With the bases empty.
15 seconds in between pitches with runners on, and then the batter has 8 seconds to get into the batter's box and show that he's ready to get to the pitcher. So
30 seconds between batters.
Sorry. But you could see how the 15-second thing would be a serious issue for Chapman. Very serious issue. He would get the ball. He would walk back to the mound, because every time his motion and momentum would take him off the dirt of the mound, he'd be on the grass. He'd get the ball back. He'd walk all the way back to the mound very slowly, get back ready, and then go through his whole elaborate motion. And that 15 seconds would, oh my God, that he's not even close.
Yeah, well, the one thing with Chapman is it's 15 seconds with the bases empty and 20 seconds once somebody gets on base.
Oh, sorry, that's it, yeah.
He wouldn't have to worry about the bases empty for very long because he'd walk the first guy he faced. So then he gets right up to 20 seconds. He'll get that little bonus time. Yeah. He probably would walk guys just to get the bonus 5 seconds. That asshole. I'm excited though. I'm excited. The world without Aroldis Chapman, the world without Zach Britton. I missed healthy Chad Green, but the world without injured Chad Green. Maybe some Weissert action earlier this year. Maybe some Matt Crook. MLB determined him to be the dark horse to make the Yankees roster, and part of that is his talent, and part of that is he's on the 40-man, and it's hard to pick a dark horse to make the Yankees roster. But he could. Will Warren came in yesterday and helped maintain. I think he gave up the only hit. And Mike Petriello tweeted that he gave up a surprising amount of contact considering how nasty his pitches looked. Fair tweet, because we're all just here judging one spring training game because it's all we have. But still, I was like, oh, man, we're already starting with the wasn't effective. Wasn't as effective as it looked based on advanced stats. I was like, God damn it, it was 12 pitches. But that said, Will Warren, the sweeper was in full effect. He looked nasty. And the Yankees are betting on Will Warren being Hayden Wesneski. Right? That's why they traded Hayden Wesneski. That's why they dumped Waldichuk and JP Sears for Frankie Montas. Which I'll say about that, I don't love Frankie Montas. I was cautiously optimistic, and there was no reason to be because he was bad and injured the entire time. But they think they can constantly replenish that. They threw Drew Thorpe into a game yesterday, and he was a dude, a top pick last year who hit 89, 90 in college, and all the scouting reports were the Yankees think they can squeeze more velo out of him, and he closed yesterday's game at 92, 93 in the Toronto game. So far, almost every time they make a bet like that, we're going to take X pitcher because they have this skill and we can maximize it. We can get another 2 miles an hour on that fastball. They've been right every time, basically. They don't always produce MLB superstars on the mound, but they always tick up people's velo and emphasize their best pitches and potentially spin them into assets and use them elsewhere, or eventually call them up. And you only know JP Sears because of how good a job they did with him in 2021 and 2022 in the system. So I think we can criticize the Yankees all we want for dropping Waldichuk off on damaged goods in Oakland, and I think that's still fair because I think we criticize the Blue Jays for trading Moreno for Varsho because you can use your catcher for other things. Criticize the Yankees for dropping Waldichuk off for an injured shoulderless pitcher with a bad road ERA. I think that's fair, but they traded him, and they were always going to trade him because they know that they can create more of him, and their rotation is currently filled. What else? I mean, before we leave, Nestor Cortez, shout out. He won the team mini golf tournament at the end of last week.
Oh, nice.
That's a big win for him and seems to insinuate that the hamstring is feeling just fine. Also, shout out to the Yankees social team for continuing to tweet these videos of the team answering questions on their way into camp.
Really funny.
Concert do you want to go to? What's your favorite cereal? The best recurring bit so far, DJ LeMahieu does not answer these fucking questions, and they put him in all his videos, just walking up to the camera, not saying anything or passing. So keep putting him in there. And Carlos Rodon is getting chirped by Wandy Peralta in all these videos, but he's not relenting. Wandy Peralta was trying to get him to say he wanted to go to some concert that obviously Wandy Peralta wanted to go to. He's trying to answer for Carlos Rodon. Rodon's like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, great. Also, Michael King said he wants to go to his sister's concert. Cute, but gonna need your real answer on that because you obviously have already been to see your sister in concert.
I wonder if she's performed at a concert.
She does his walkout song.
Yeah.
She has to have had a concert. I don't know where.
Yeah, I guess could have been a small scale thing. Yeah, I'm loving that though. That shows some creativity from the Yankees for actually doing that. So another deviation from the norm for them. Makes 2023 feel a little bit different.
She has 167,000 followers on Instagram.
On Instagram? Holy shit. Yes.
And her bio says, text me, parentheses, yes, it's really me, with a crying cat face emoji and then a number. Do we start and get her on the podcast? Yes or yes?
Yes. She only has 1,500 followers on Twitter. That's crazy.
Ton of followers on Instagram.
Wow. Okay. So then, yeah, she's had a concert. Sorry, Olivia.
Anyway, that's it. I think that's it for the app. We'll text Olivia King. We'll get her on here. I was talking to Gray Fender's family over the weekend, too. They want to come on the podcast, so they should. Waiting for him to start the minor league season. Looking forward to getting a glimpse of that dude. Impressive numbers in the Orioles system. Why not? Come on the pod. Everybody who wants to is invited. Until next time, it'll be Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern, like always. And the audio feed will be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Some great guests coming up, and Olivia King will be on the show at some point, I assume. But if not, we still got great stuff coming for you folks. And make sure to drop us those reviews. And if you've got a chance, if you've got a question, reach out on Twitter or in the mailbag in the comments. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weiner. Thomas Carinante, where can the folks find you?
I'm at Tommy's_takes. We are at the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Content's picking up. Got some spring stuff going on. Roster projections, more fleshed out position battles, some prospect stuff. You never know who's going to emerge. You never know what's going to happen. We're already looking at situations with Volpe, Dominguez, and Dunham that I don't think we would have been talking about after day 1 or day 2 on any other previous year of spring training, which has usually been boring for this team. So head on over there. We got our bylines, lots of stuff lined up for you to read. Comment on them. Reach out to us on social media. We want to keep the discourse going. And until then, Thursday is the next time you'll hear from us. Tune on in at 2 p.m. Eastern Thursday.